What has been the trickle-down effect of streaming music?
Oh, that's a big question. The trickle-down effect of streaming music. Well, you sort of have to look at it over its history. When I became president of Sony Music Canada, Sean Fanning was just giving birth to Napster, which was a disruptive little Dickens. And out, of Napster came other illegal file sharing sites, and it was catastrophic for the recording industry because it was suddenly, how do you compete with free? People were getting their music for free. And it's very difficult to compete with that. It's like, you have a bakery store and the guy next door starts giving bread away and you're like, well, whoa. And it devastated the industry. And it's only now, even 16 years later, that I think 2016 is the first year that the record industry has actually started to turn around, right? The digital sales have superseded physical sales, and I think 2016 they grew by 3.2% from 2015, which in any other business is a rounding error, but in the record business, anyone was looking for a sign of improvement. So it changed almost everything, including now we have legal streaming sites. There's over 500 legal streaming sites around the world. But it's still a problem for artists because now it's harder to get paid, right? The promise of the golden age for artists was that, if you could access media directly, you could get rid of all these middle people who were keeping your music away because you didn't get a deal, you weren't signed, you weren't promoted, whatever. But now everybody has instant access to market. The problem is that the do-it-yourself tools turned so many artists into hucksters. They're their own consumer department. They're their own distribution department. They're their own A&R team. Their own publicity team. They're their own complaints department. And not only that, but I don't want my artists spending 10,000 hours on being the infrastructure. I want them to be able to spend their 10,000 hours on being the best artists that they can possibly be. So the streaming sites come in, artists are complaining, and rightly so, that the royalty rates that they get from streaming are terrible. There's a huge gap between how many times, it was like, that's why Taylor Swift took her music off Spotify. That's why, I think there was a famous example of Pharrell, who, his big hit, Happy, he got paid something like $2,700 that included his publishing and writer royalties from 43 million plays. That's not going to keep him in good hands. So there's a gap now, right? Lots of exposure, but you can die from exposure. So there's a gap between how to get paid. And it's a topsy-turvy world, because before, you would put out a CD, you would tour to support the CD and get paid from the sales of the CD. Now you give it away for free and hope to hell that somebody's going to come to your live performance where you will actually get paid, and maybe they'll buy a hat with your logo on it. So it's difficult, and it's having a huge effect on the industry. There's a stat that recently said that from 2006, we have less than half of the musical artists in the country than we used to. There's a huge gap.
Wow.
I know.
That's shocking. The other question is, what lessons are there in music's downturn and recovery for other industries such as newspaper, publishing, television?
I think there's a lot of lessons. I think that they all start with C, right? Context, content, community, compensation. Other industries, are challenged right now. Newspapers, the book industry, the television industry for sure. The new tools will give everybody new ways to build community, to access their customers, to engage with their customers. And at the same time, especially when it comes to information and content, we're being totally overloaded. That was Ron James said, a Canadian comedian, he said, I remember reading in a paper, he said, I have so much information now, I haven't a clue what's going on. And it's true, right? Just because we have the headlines doesn't mean we understand it any better. So I think an opportunity for a lot of media outlets to provide context, to help people understand, to help them navigate through this bombardment of information is one of the ways. And also to compensate the creators. Journalists are being paid less. They're struggling the way musicians are struggling. We are learning better. We're learning to get our information from behind firewalls. We're subscribing to the sites we like. It's all starting to happen, but we have to work harder at it too, just as consumers. There's no lack of curiosity, for sure. And but we have to work harder to find it to meet our curious demands.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.